The sirens were for me. That's what she wanted everyone on Maple Crescent to believe. 10 minutes earlier, I'd been pulling a 7-year-old boy out of a pool that wasn't even mine to guard. My name is Adrian Cole, and I still had chlorine water dripping off my elbows when the first cop car rolled up. Regina Voss stood on her porch, dry as a bone, pointing at me like I was the crime, not the rescue. That man broke into my backyard, she told the officer, voice trembling on cue. Her son Tyler sat wrapped in my own beach towel, coughing, alive, staring at his mother in confusion. Nobody in that moment knew this was the opening move of a war that had been building for 11 months. I want to tell you how a lawnmower dispute turned into handcuffs on a woman who almost let her own kid drown. Stick with me, because the ending is the kind of justice you don't get to see very often. I moved to Maple Crescent in Ridgefield, Ohio, 3 years ago, chasing a quiet cul-de-sac in good schools. My wife Dana and I bought the blue Colonial on the corner lot, the one with the crooked oak tree out front. Regina Voss ran the homeowners association like it was her personal kingdom, and everyone tiptoed around her. She'd served as HOA president for 6 years, unopposed, because nobody wanted the headache of running against her. At first she seemed almost pleasant, bringing over a fruit basket and a 17-page welcome packet of rules. I laughed at the packet. Dana didn't. She'd read horror stories about HOAs online and warned me to be careful. I brushed it off. I'm an accountant. I like rules. I figured we'd get along just fine. That illusion lasted about 4 months, until my grass grew half an inch past the association's approved height. Regina left a citation on my door. Type. Notarized. With a $50 fine attached like a parking ticket. I paid it without complaint. It seemed easier than fighting over blades of grass. But the fines kept coming. My mailbox angle. My porch light bulb wattage. My garden hose left visible on a Tuesday. Every single time. The violation appeared within hours of something happening near her house. Never near anyone else's. I started noticing a pattern. My neighbor Miguel got fined for a basketball hoop. My other neighbor, nothing. Ever. Miguel told me quietly one evening that Regina and his ex-wife used to be friends before a bitter divorce. Coincidence? Maybe. But coincidences piling up start to look like something else entirely. Dana suggested I start keeping records. Not out of paranoia, she said, but out of self-defense. So I bought a cheap filing box and began saving every notice, every email, every time-stamped photo Regina sent. I didn't know yet that box would become Exhibit A in a courtroom 11 months later. The neighborhood itself was beautiful. Honestly, tree-lined streets, community pool. Kids reading bikes till dusk. That's what made Regina's grip so strange. She'd built a small paradise and then policed it like a prison yard. People who'd lived there for decades admitted they were afraid of her. Afraid of endless fines and lawsuits. She sued the Hendersons over a fence post, one neighbor whispered at a block party, like it was classified information. I asked why nobody had ever run against her for president. The answer was always the same nervous laugh. Nobody wants to be the one she targets next, a woman named Carol told me, refilling her lemonade. I remember thinking, someone should stand up to her. I didn't yet realize that someone would end up being me. The tension really started the week I proposed repainting my own shutters a shade of navy blue. Regina informed me, in writing, that navy blue violated the approved exterior palette listed in Section 4.2. I checked the palette. Navy blue was listed. She'd simply decided my particular navy wasn't navy enough. I painted them anyway, believing I was within my rights, and within 48 hours a fine appeared. $200. For paint. I laughed out loud reading the letter, and then I got angry. That was the moment something shifted in me. From patient neighbor to quiet observer building a case. I requested the HOA's official governing documents, the bylaws, the covenants, everything filed with the county. Regina stalled for 3 weeks before finally emailing a scanned, blurry, incomplete copy of the rules. Something about that blurriness felt deliberate, like she didn't want me reading the fine print too closely. Dana, a paralegal by training, sat down one night and read every page twice, highlighter in hand. Adrian, she said, tapping the paper. Her enforcement doesn't match what's actually written here. Turned out several fines she'd issued referenced rules that didn't exist in the real, recorded covenants. She'd been inventing violations. Or quietly amending documents without the votes required to change them. That was our first real crack in her armor. Small, easy to miss, but it never left my mind again. I started attending every HOA meeting after that, sitting quietly in the back, taking notes on my phone. Regina ran those meetings like a courtroom where she was judge, jury, and the only lawyer allowed to speak. Anyone who questioned a fine got cut off, talked over, or reminded of decorum until they sat back down. I decided to play the long game. Smile, nod, ask polite questions, and quietly document every answer. Little did she know, the mild-mannered accountant in the back row was building a spreadsheet with a purpose. By month 6, my spreadsheet had 41 entries, dates, fines, rules, citations, and photographic evidence. Some fines had been issued for violations Regina herself was committing at that exact same time. Her own hedges, for instance, sat 8 inches over the height limit she'd fined the Hendersons for. I started photographing her property too. Careful, legal, from the public sidewalk. Timestamps included. Dana warned me to be careful. Don't give her anything to use against you, she said. I promised I wouldn't. Still, tension simmered every time Regina and I crossed paths at the mailbox or the community pool gate. Neither of us said much. But we both knew, somehow, that a real confrontation was only a matter of time. That confrontation arrived on a Saturday morning nobody in this neighborhood will ever forget. Dana and I were walking our dog past the community pool when I heard it. Splashing, then silence, then nothing. I looked through the fence and saw a small body sinking near the deep end. No adult anywhere close. My training as a former lifeguard kicked in before my brain even finished processing what I saw. I vaulted the pool gate, fully clothed, phone still in my pocket, and dove straight in. The boy was Tyler Voss, Regina's son. 9 years old, thrashing weakly, water already filling his lungs. I pulled him to the surface, got him to the pool edge, and started rescue breaths the second we hit air. He coughed up water, gasped, cried, and grabbed onto my soaked shirt like it was the only solid thing on earth. That's when Regina came sprinting from her patio chair, phone in hand, screaming words I didn't expect at all. Get away from my son. Get away from him right now. I was still cradling a coughing, terrified child, and she was screaming at me like I was the danger. He almost drowned, I said, stunned. I pulled him out. He needs a hospital. Not this. She snatched Tyler away, wrapped her arms around him, and then turned that same fury directly on me. You don't have permission to touch my child. You don't have permission to be in this pool area at all. I stood there dripping, heart still hammering, genuinely confused by what was happening in front of me. Dana arrived seconds later, saw Tyler coughing, saw me soaked, and immediately understood the shape of the situation. He just saved your son's life, Dana said, voice sharp. Where were you when he went under? Regina's face flickered, just for a second, something like guilt, before hardening back into outrage. I was right here the whole time, she snapped, though her lounge chair sat a full pool length away. That gap between her chair and the water would matter more than any of us realized in that moment. A small crowd had gathered by then, neighbors drawn by the shouting, phones already recording without me asking. Regina turned to them, tears suddenly appearing, and announced that a stranger had grabbed her child violently. He came out of nowhere, she said. I don't even know why he was near the pool at all. I opened my mouth to explain, but she was already dialing 911, hands shaking with what looked like performance, not fear. Yes, there's a man. He assaulted my son at the pool. Please send someone immediately, she said into the phone. Assaulted. That word landed on me like a slap. I had bruised knuckles from pool concrete. Nothing more. Dana grabbed my arm. Don't say anything else right now. Not until we know what she's actually claiming. I stood there, soaked, shivering slightly, watching a woman rewrite the last 3 minutes in real time. Tyler, still wrapped in my towel, tugged at his mother's sleeve. Mom, you saved me. I went under. Regina hushed him instantly, almost too quickly. The way people hush a child about to say something inconvenient. That small moment stuck with me. A mother silencing the one witness who could actually clear my name. The police arrived within 8 minutes. Two officers, cautious, professional, clearly unsure what they were walking into. Regina met them at the gate performing distress so convincingly that one officer immediately turned toward me. "Sir, can you step away from the pool area and tell us what happened here?" I explained everything, calmly, factually, the way I explain numbers to nervous clients at the office. The officer listened, nodded, then walked over to interview Regina, whose story had shifted twice already. Neighbors began speaking up unprompted, several holding up their phones. "We got some of it on video," one said. Regina's face went pale for a flicker of a second before she recovered her composure completely. The officer asked to see the footage. Regina suddenly insisted it probably wasn't relevant, and urged them to focus on me. That single sentence, "urged them to focus on me," became one of the most important lines of this entire story. The lead officer, a calm woman named Officer Reyes, asked everyone to stay put while she reviewed the phone videos. One clip clearly showed me climbing the fence, diving in and pulling Tyler to the surface within seconds. Another clip captured Regina 30 feet away on her phone, not looking at the pool at all during the incident. Officer Reyes's expression shifted from neutral to something sharper as she watched the second video twice. "Ma'am," she said to Regina, "where exactly were you when your son went under the water?" Regina hesitated. "I was watching him. I just looked away for 1 second." The video showed nearly 90 seconds of her scrolling her phone, laughing at something on the screen. Officer Reyes turned to me next. "Sir, thank you for what you did. That was fast thinking. Honestly impressive." Relief hit me so hard my knees nearly buckled. Though the fight, I would soon learn, was far from over. Regina wasn't done. Once the officers softened toward me, she pivoted to a different angle entirely. "He climbed a locked gate onto private community property," she insisted. "That's trespassing. At minimum." The officers exchanged a glance. Technically the pool gate had been left unlatched, propped by a maintenance cart. Still, Regina demanded a police report be filed against me for trespassing and reckless endangerment of a minor. Officer Reyes explained, patiently, that saving a drowning child rarely qualifies as endangering that same child. Regina's voice climbed an octave. "I want him charged. I want this documented. I know my rights as a homeowner." That phrase, "my rights as a homeowner," would echo through the rest of this story in ways she never expected. Ultimately, no charges were filed against me that day, only an incident report noting a near drowning and a rescue. But Regina wasn't finished escalating. 2 days later, an HOA violation notice appeared on my door instead. Unauthorized entry into common pool area, resulting in disturbance and endangerment of a minor resident. I stared at that letter for a long time, half laughing, half furious, at the audacity stitched into every word. Dana, ever the paralegal, read it 3 times and said one sentence that changed our entire strategy going forward. Adrian, she just put this in writing. She just gave us something we can actually use. That fine, $500, became the first official document proving Regina retaliated against a rescue. I added it to my growing folder, now bulging with fines, blurry bylaws, timestamped photos and video links. Word of the pool incident spread through Maple Crescent faster than any HOA newsletter ever had. Neighbors who'd been quietly fined for years suddenly started knocking on our door, one by one, with stories of their own. Carol from the lemonade stand admitted Regina had fined her for a wind chime noise violation that didn't exist in writing. Miguel showed us records proving his basketball hoop fine referenced a rule amended without a proper vote. A pattern emerged that felt less like coincidence and more like a woman using the HOA as a personal weapon. I started something small at first, a private group chat, just 5 neighbors comparing notes and fines. Within 2 weeks, that chat had 18 members, all quietly documenting years of questionable enforcement. Dana suggested we request Regina's full financial records for the HOA, which every member is legally entitled to see. Regina denied the request twice, citing administrative delays, which only deepened everyone's suspicion. On the 3rd request, backed now by 4 homeowners instead of 1, she had no legal ground left to refuse. What we found in those financial records changed the entire shape of this story completely. Thousands of dollars in landscaping consultation fees, had been paid to a company registered at Regina's own address. She'd been quietly billing the HOA for services provided, on paper, by herself, under a different business name. Miguel, an actual auditor by profession, called it what it was immediately. That's embezzlement. Plain and simple. We didn't confront her yet. We kept gathering, kept photographing, kept building something too solid to dismiss. Regina, sensing the neighborhood's shifting mood, escalated her campaign against me specifically, and it got personal. She began telling neighbors I'd attacked her child, a lie growing wilder every time she repeated it. Someone slashed one of my car tires overnight. I couldn't prove it was her, but the timing spoke volumes. Dana installed a doorbell camera the very next day, and I'm grateful, endlessly grateful, that she did. 2 nights later, that camera caught something none of us expected. Something that changed everything again. At 11:47 p.m., footage showed Regina herself walking up our driveway, gloved hands, holding what looked like a folder. She slipped papers into our mailbox, glanced around nervously, and hurried back to her house across the street. The next morning I opened the mailbox to find a forged HOA complaint, supposedly signed by 3 other neighbors. Every signature had been copied. Badly. The same slight forward slant repeated on every single line. I called Miguel and Carol immediately. Neither had signed anything, and both were furious when they saw the forgery. That was the twist none of us saw coming. Regina hadn't just been unfair. She'd been forging documents outright. We took the doorbell footage, the forged complaint, and the fake signatures straight to a real estate attorney. Attorney Lena Park reviewed everything for nearly 2 hours before finally looking up and setting down her pen. "This isn't just an HOA dispute anymore," she said. "This is potential fraud, forgery, and financial misconduct." She explained that Ohio law allows homeowners to petition for removal of an HOA board member for serious misconduct. But removal required a formal vote, a paper trail, and enough documented harm to convince a judge or arbitrator. "You have the paper trail," Lena said, tapping my overstuffed folder. "Now we build the timeline properly." For the first time since that pool incident, I felt something other than anger. I felt something like hope. We scheduled a special HOA meeting, using the association's own bylaws to force Regina's hand publicly. She tried blocking it twice, citing procedural technicalities that Lena calmly dismantled with the actual bylaws. The meeting was set for a Thursday evening, in the community clubhouse Regina herself had always controlled. Word spread fast. By Wednesday, nearly every household on Maple Crescent knew something big was coming. Regina, sensing the walls closing in, tried a preemptive move nobody expected, and it backfired spectacularly. She filed a restraining order against me, claiming I'd been stalking and harassing her family for weeks. The filing cited my sidewalk photographs of her hedges as evidence of obsessive surveillance and intimidation. A judge scheduled an emergency hearing for the following Monday, 3 days before our planned HOA meeting. Dana didn't panic. She smiled, actually smiled, and said, "Good. Now we get a judge to see everything early." We arrived at that restraining order hearing with the entire folder, the videos, the forged signatures, all of it. Regina arrived with a lawyer, a stack of dramatic photographs, and a story rehearsed just a little too smoothly. She testified first, describing me as an obsessive neighbor fixated on her family since the day we moved in. Her lawyer played a single blurry photo of me on the sidewalk, framing it as proof of stalking behavior. Then it was our turn. Lena calmly submitted the doorbell footage of Regina forging documents at midnight. The judge's expression changed almost instantly, eyebrows lifting as the video played on the courtroom screen. Next came the pool rescue footage, showing me saving Tyler while Regina sat 30 feet away on her phone. Finally, Lena submitted the financial records, the self-paid landscaping invoices, the pattern of selective fines. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Alvarez, asked Regina directly why she'd been photographed forging signatures. Regina stammered, blamed a misunderstanding, then blamed her attorney, then blamed stress from harassment. Judge Alvarez wasn't buying any of it. "Ma'am, I've seen enough here to deny this restraining order entirely." She went further, ordering the forged complaint and financial discrepancies referred directly to the county prosecutor. Regina's face drained of color as the judge's words landed in that quiet, wood-paneled courtroom. For the first time in 11 months, I watched Regina Voss look genuinely, completely afraid. Walking out of that courthouse, I should have felt triumphant, but honestly, I mostly just felt tired. Dana squeezed my hand. "This isn't over," she said. "But we just won the part that mattered most." Regina, humiliated in court, didn't retreat quietly. Cornered animals, it turns out, get more dangerous, not less. She started a rumor campaign through the neighborhood app, claiming the whole thing was a conspiracy against her. A few longtime supporters believed her, at least at first, defending her in furious, all-caps comment threads. But then Carol posted her own fine history, screenshots and all, calmly, publicly, without a single insult. Miguel followed with his basketball hoop paperwork, showing the invented rule amendment in black and white. One by one, neighbors who'd stayed silent for years finally spoke up, adding their own stories to the thread. The narrative Regina had controlled for 6 years unraveled in under 72 hours, post by post. By Thursday, the night of our scheduled HOA meeting, the clubhouse parking lot was completely full. More residents showed up than I'd ever seen at any HOA event. Folding chairs dragged in from 3 different closets. Regina sat at the head table, alone. Her usual entourage of yes-voting board members conspicuously absent. Lena opened the meeting by reading the formal petition for Regina's removal as HOA president. Point by point. Forged signatures. Self-paid invoices. Selective enforcement. Retaliation following a literal child rescue. Each point landed heavier than the last. Murmurs rippling through the packed clubhouse like a slow wave. Regina tried to speak. Tried her old trick of talking over dissent. But the room simply refused to quiet down. "You almost let your own son drown," someone shouted from the back. "And then you tried to arrest the man who saved him." That line silenced the entire room, and I watched something in Regina's posture finally, visibly, collapse. The vote to remove her from the board passed with an overwhelming, almost unanimous majority of homeowners. Regina stood, gathered her folder of talking points and left the clubhouse without saying another word. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. The county prosecutor's office had other plans entirely. 3 weeks after her removal, detectives contacted several of us regarding the financial fraud investigation. They traced over $14,000 in HOA funds funneled through Regina's landscaping shell company. Separately, the forged complaint letter became its own criminal matter, forgery being a real, chargeable offense. Then came the twist that honestly stunned even me. Something none of us had anticipated during this entire fight. Detectives, reviewing the 911 call from the pool incident, flagged something troubling in Regina's own statement. Her call, time-stamped and recorded, described events that directly contradicted the video evidence from that day. Specifically, she'd claimed to be supervising Tyler the entire time, in a sworn follow-up statement to police. That statement, combined with video showing 90 seconds of inattention, opened a child endangerment inquiry. Ohio law takes supervision negligence seriously, especially when paired with a false statement to law enforcement. I hadn't wanted that outcome. I want to be honest with you here. I never wished for Tyler to be part of this. But the truth doesn't ask permission before it surfaces, and Regina's own lies kept building the case against her. Investigators also found she'd falsely reported the pool incident as an assault in her original 911 call. Filing a false police report is its own separate charge, and combined with everything else, stacked up fast. Regina Voss was formally charged with fraud, forgery, filing a false police report, and child endangerment. I remember reading the headline in the local paper and just sitting with it for a long, quiet minute. 11 months earlier, she'd fined me for the wrong shade of navy blue paint on my own shutters. Now her name was attached to a criminal case file with 4 separate charges listed in black ink. The community reeled, understandably. Even people who disliked her didn't expect it to go this far. Carol told me she felt sick about it. Honestly, imagining Tyler caught in the middle of his mother's unraveling. That's the part of this story that never felt satisfying. No matter how badly Regina deserved consequences. A kid was almost hurt. Twice really. Once in the pool. once by his own mother's reckless choices afterward. Dana and I made a point of checking on Tyler through the new board, quietly, without making it a spectacle. He was staying with his father during the legal proceedings, safe, in counseling, doing better than expected. The county prosecutor moved forward with the case over the following months, methodically, without much mercy. Regina's attorney tried negotiating a plea deal, hoping to minimize the fraud and forgery charges especially. The false police report and endangerment charges proved harder to soften, given the video evidence involved. The trial date arrived nearly a year after that pool afternoon, almost exactly, which felt strange to sit with. I testified, calmly, factually, the way I'd always documented everything from the very beginning of this fight. Officer Reyes testified too, confirming the video evidence and the timeline of that chaotic Saturday morning. Miguel testified about the fines. Carol testified about the wind chime letter that never legally existed. Regina's own defense couldn't escape the doorbell footage of her forging signatures at nearly midnight. The jury deliberated for less than a full day before returning a verdict that echoed through Maple Crescent. Guilty on fraud. Guilty on forgery. Guilty on filing a false police report. Guilty on child endangerment. Judge Alvarez, the same judge from the restraining order hearing, handed down restitution, probation and community service. Regina Voss, once the untouchable ruler of our little cul-de-sac, was barred permanently from serving on any HOA board. She sold her house within 2 months. Quietly, no goodbye party, no farewell fruit basket left on anyone's porch. Maple Crescent elected a new HOA board, Miguel among them, with actual bylaws finally enforced fairly for everyone. I still keep that overstuffed folder in my garage. A strange trophy from the year one drowning changed everything. Some nights I think about Tyler, hoping he grows up in a calmer house than the one that almost sank him. VND.